I'm Marie Saavedra, and we join you after the news of the passing of Britain's longest reigning monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. You see here a picture outside of Buckingham Palace, staff there announcing that this afternoon Queen Elizabeth passed peacefully at her Balmoral estate. That's her summer home, a castle in Scotland, where we know that her closest family were there to be with her during her final moments. We wanted to provide a little bit of context on what is truly earth-shattering news for a monarch who has been so key, not only in government and in her country and in historical relations, but also in popular culture for so many as a figurehead for 70 years. Joining me now to talk more about this loss and its ripple effects is journalist Paul Coyte, joining us from London this afternoon. Paul, I thought this morning when we heard the news about her health being grave, that doctors were concerned. Some reason, even as we watched that filter out throughout the afternoon and people started thinking about possibly a world without Queen Elizabeth II, now that we have learned that she's passed, that announcement still feels shocking in a way. I can only imagine that's also a feeling felt on your side of the pond.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing I could liken it to is it's something that was expected at some point now. After all, we're talking about a 96-year-old lady who's looking frail, and we knew that obviously this can't go on forever. 70 years on the throne, and it's like a member of the family. You know, it's an extended member of the family. It's someone that we've grown up knowing. It's someone that we've grown up, everyone looking up to, of course. This is our queen. So although even through the day, as the day went on, because it was just around 12 o'clock lunchtime here, which would have been 6 a.m. your time, this is when we heard the news. And normally, if the public would have just heard something from Buckingham Palace saying the Queen is unwell and she's being looked after by doctors, you may not think twice about it. But the palace do not send statements out like that. If the Queen is unwell, you don't know. If the Queen has got a cold, if the Queen's got the flu, you wouldn't know. So when you hear that news and you think, well, something doesn't sound right here. So then broadcasters and people that are there and experts in royal circles start saying, well, you know, this is not normal protocol. Then we all start to worry. And as the day moves on, as we go through the next 6 hours, then we know that something certainly is up. And it was almost a matter of time and just waiting for that announcement. So it did come at 6:30, and 6:30 this evening, which is 12:30 your time, and it began with the Union Jack, the flag being lowered at half-mast above Buckingham Palace, and the statement announcing that the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. It's something, as I say, that we knew was coming, but it's no less shocking, and it's a very bizarre feeling. Those that have lost loved ones, which is probably most of us, will know how that feels, and it feels the same way.
It's true. Speaking of loved ones, Paul, we watched after that initial announcement about the Queen's health being concerning. We saw and heard that her 4 children, Prince Charles, Princess Anne, the Duke of York, Andrew, and Earl of Wessex, Edward, all rushed there. Princes William and Harry also making their way to Balmoral. Can you shed light for those who aren't familiar on how much that Balmoral Castle is a figurehead in not only the Queen's life, a sort of retreat for her, that it meant so much? I know a lot of people are saying it says something, or it's fitting that that's where she spent her final hours.
It is. It's a place she loved greatly, and she would go walking there on the Highlands. It's something that she'd done since she was a little girl. And there are different residences. There's, of course, Buckingham Palace in London, which is more known as the office than anything else. It's not something that she had a great affection for, but it was where she worked from. And of course, this is probably the best known. There's Sandringham, which is out in Norfolk, which is out on the east coast of this country, and that's where she'd spend Christmas. And Balmoral, this is almost like the place that she would love the most, and that's where she'd spend her summers. Yes, it's fitting, I guess. It's heartbreaking, and I'd hate to refer to The Crown, because I don't know how the royal family would feel about the show The Crown, but that's something that featured greatly in that, was Balmoral. There's many scenes that were around that area. It's a beautiful area of Scotland. And the thing is, Marie, we don't actually know the time. This will probably come out over the next couple of days. We were told firstly this afternoon, and then we believe it was this evening. We know that the whole family rushed up from everywhere. There was a private jet that flew them into Aberdeen. There was a 40-minute car ride that actually got them to Balmoral. Whether it was on time, whether we saw her passing, these are things that will come out later. But we do know that Prince Charles, who is now as we believe to be King Charles III, was there. There's also conjecture and rumour as what he would be called, because there are different monarchs in the past that wouldn't actually take their proper Christian name or their first name. Although Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, and if you can imagine what it's like for Liz Truss became the Prime Minister of this country 2 days ago, and she was sworn in by the Queen. She went to Balmoral. Boris Johnson was there to resign. The Queen saw her, and it was her last major act as Queen. That it was almost that she felt that she had to do this. We were surprised about how frail and how ill she actually did look, but put it off to the fact that maybe this is a 96-year-old lady. But Liz Truss saw her 2 days ago, and now who would think that 2 days on, she's having to stand in front of the country and talk about the Queen, where she's only been Prime Minister of the country for just 2 days. But she did refer to Charles as King Charles III, which I think we could assume is now going to be his title.
I noted that. I also saw in that readout from Buckingham Palace that they said that Charles's wife Camilla is the Queen Consort. So now we have that bit of language as well. I want to talk about, you mentioned that meeting with the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, that was just 2 days ago. To me, this speaks to something that has been so identifiable when you're talking about the Queen, is that commitment to duty and doing the job at all costs, at all times. So that was just Tuesday when we saw the Queen in those photos, meeting the Prime Minister. And Paul, it's rare, right, that the Prime Minister would go to Balmoral as opposed to meeting the Queen at Buckingham Palace. But as you referenced, this is a 96-year-old woman, so it makes sense that maybe they would have the new Prime Minister make that journey. We know then that the Queen pulled out of a virtual event, I believe, that was set for Wednesday, doctors encouraging her to rest, and then, of course, the news coming overnight here in the U.S. But Thursday morning for you all that the Queen's doctors were concerned about her health. Then this afternoon and evening for you, we get the information that she has passed. This seems in line with her, that she was working till the end, if you will.
It was that sense of duty, and it never stopped. She only had 2 days off a year, and this is working right the way up to 96 years old. You know, there's so many that would look at anti-royalists, maybe they say, oh, the royals, you know, it's a very easy life, it's a fantastic life, you know, it's a very privileged life, but it's a very hard working life. 7 days a week there were engagements all around the world that the Queen would be involved in. And we had heard stories, of course, and there had been instances where she had pulled out of certain meetings or engagements because of ill health. But this one was something that was very important to her. Now, of all the Prime Ministers she's seen over the years, the first Prime Minister that served under the Queen was Winston Churchill, and he was born 101, there was 101 years difference between the birth of Winston Churchill and the final Prime Minister, which is Liz Truss. She was born in 75, and so Winston Churchill, 1874. So we're talking like 101 years that span Prime Ministers. So everyone was met in the office at Buckingham Palace, apart from the very last, which is Truss. And obviously because of the reason of ill health, she still went through with it. Still something. She could have said to Prince Charles, it could have been handed to him. But no, this is something that she would have felt that she had to do as Queen. So service right to the end, and within a couple of days, of course.
The history that Queen Elizabeth has been a part of and has made over the years is just incredible. From the American perspective, we know that President Biden was briefed earlier today. Queen Elizabeth II met every president since Harry Truman except for LBJ. And her impact, I think, on the United States and seeing those visits between the monarch and our president have always been really impactful and garnered a lot of attention. Paul, I'd love to ask for your perspective, living in London and being there and having a sense of Britain's feeling about the monarch at large from a 30,000-foot perspective. Queen Elizabeth often credited as being the glue of the monarchy as we know it for many decades and also today. I'm curious how the younger generation is looking at not only the monarchy, but her specifically, and how they feel about it. Are some of the layers there as people consider what the monarchy means?
Yeah, this is going to be, probably will be worked out over the next couple of days. There are different people that have different views of the monarchy, of course. The older generation, you would find are much more pro-monarchy than some of the younger generation, which I think makes sense, as you can imagine. But there will be a profound sadness across the country. There is no doubt about that. If I can liken it to when Princess Diana passed away back in 1997, at first there was shock. I mean, it was a completely different situation, of course. But then, as it was drip fed over a week or 2 weeks, that it was taken in by people. You know, it's a very difficult thing to try and explain, but I'm sure it happened over there as well. Is that it was like watching a very, very sad film, and when you get upset, but then it continues, and then it continues, and then it feels more moving, and the sadness continues throughout the week. And I think this is how it's going to go here. You know, I don't even want to belittle that for a second, because if it comes over that way, I certainly don't believe that and don't feel that. I mean, this is our monarch. So this is the person who, you know, as Liz Truss said, the bedrock of this country, this Queen is. She's seen everything. She served in World War II. She's outlived every long-reigning monarch around the world. She's our longest reigning monarch by a long way, 70 years. So it's going to be very interesting over the next few days to see how it affects the country. I think mostly, it's like I said, it's like a family death. People are going to feel a profound sadness at the moment, but how they're going to react over the next few days, we will see. And of course, there'll be a state funeral. There's no announcement about that yet. I assume that would probably be a week on Saturday. I imagine that's when it'll be, but there's no details yet. But everything will be in hand and things will be worked on immediately.
We are so quick to think about King Charles III and what happens with his coronation, which early reports seem to be that would come months and months from now. The focus is on mourning. But to hear people talk about the end of this Elizabethan age feels so momentous. And again, back to that shock feeling, even though we knew eventually this was coming.
We don't know any different. I mean, the majority of this country do not know any different. We're talking the monarch for 70 years. It's small things. For example, the national anthem is God Save the Queen. How strange is it going to be to now sing God Save the King? Because nobody has done that unless you're the age of, probably over the age of 80 or so, that you would actually remember George VI, who was the Queen's father. So there would be a coronation. It was a year between the King passing away back in 1952 to the coronation in 1953. I imagine it's going to be a long way. But at the moment, of course, it's a sense of mourning. It's a sense of shock. It's a sense of sadness. And it's a sense of reflection as well, looking back on the Queen, because we've not known any different, because she's been our monarch for all of our lives. So it's going to be a very strange couple of days, a very sad couple of days.
A great loss for sure. Paul Coyte, I want to thank you so much for joining us from London, giving us a sense of what things are like on the ground as that nation and so many around the world mourn the loss of Queen Elizabeth II. Paul, thank you again for your time.
Pleasure.